Thank you, friends. Shabbat Shalom. Greetings to you all. I hope you have all had a pleasant week, and I hope everybody's solstice was awesome. We've now passed the shortest day of the year. And those increasing lights of the miracle of Hanukkah are always the reminder of increasing light coming back into the world. The candles have burnt down, the latkes have been devoured, the dreidels put away. Santa has come and visited, if not every house in the universe, at least Earth, although he has gone to Mars also, all in an evening. And friends, the light that burned on Christmas reminds us to be true to our own North Star, the star that leads you home, to where you are loved and nurtured and protected and safe, and reminds you all to follow your dreams. I am still on the road. I have been to Whoville, and as Steve Goodman saying, I am 6 hours ahead of the sun. One more night in a transatlantic city, and the clocks all run on someone else's time. The streets run so close to the houses, but none of them run into mine. And friends, tonight we will read about a family on the move in a story about destiny. Some folks travel for pleasure, and other folks are just born to roam. Some folks can't stand the pressure, and some of them never come home. And I only go where I have to go, and I only come home when I'm done. And if everything's right, then I'll be home Friday night, 6 hours ahead of the sun. Greetings go out to Scott and Yona. It was great meeting you, and I bet it was an amazing bat mitzvah. What a location, what an eternal memory in an eternal city. Travel safely, my friends. And of course, birthday wishes go to Yeshua ben Miriam, the Nazarite. 2014 and still going strong. And who could forget those great words? Tell me what you think about your friends at the top. Who'd you think besides yourselves the pick of the crop? And friends, in this season of dreams, I had two more season of miracle dreams myself. One that marked a major transit in my life. And while the content of that one escapes me right now, the message was clear. We have to learn not to do everything by ourselves. Trust others to do what they do while you do what you do. You cannot do everything by yourself, and you cannot be everything. The second involved luggage, a trip, lions and camels. And I was fortunate enough to have breakfast with Joseph the other day, who was able to unlock and decipher both dreams, and told me that the first was about my not putting enough faith in God, something we all have to monitor at times, and something again that points to our North Stars. And the second was about my emotional quotient. And both were Archimedes' aha eureka moments. Let's all take a minute at the end to say goodbye to that mad dog and Englishman, Joe Cocker. He will be missed, and yes, we all need a little help from our friends. Speaking of which, I was talking with a great friend of mine who'd received an invoice from one of her advisors, which was way, way beyond what had been quoted. And of course, the immortal words of Billy Preston came to mind. Why can't we be humble? Like the good Lord say, how man be so greedy? Why can't people stick to what they say? Or if there is a problem, pick up the phone and say so. Why do people lie? And as the world gets ready to mark the new year, Bruce and Ellen are safely floating through some delta, I am sure, absorbing more of the fantastic cultures and energies the Great Spirit shares and aligns. And you will see that a Jew boo is no different. We come from the same energy. Both are based on intention. Friends, we've reached the end of the Joseph Chronicles, and this is the great reveal. First by Joseph to his brothers, and then by the brothers to Jacob. Like in Genesis 45:3. And Joseph said to his brothers, Ani Yosef, I am Joseph. Is my father still alive? And his brothers were not able to answer him because they were terrified in front of him. Well, imagine how dumbfounded they must have been. Imagine the feelings when something you've lived your life believing turns out not to be true. Great reveals. These are the emotional responses that touch societal nerves. And it reminds me, now I saw another fantastic seasonal film the other night. One of those great Hallmark movies. I believe it was called Christmas Secret. And it was a series of incredible reveals affecting all of the characters in the film, spanning generations, and drawing them all into a closer sphere. The emotional catharsis was overwhelming. And can you picture the events and the catharsis as the brothers say to Jacob, Yosef, chi, ki. Joseph is still alive. 3 words, 4 syllables, to shatter a 22-year illusion. And Jacob has heart palpitations. How can he not? This is the emotion of the great reveal in this parsha. Vayegash, and he approached. Joseph had Benjamin arrested for stealing his cup, and friends, it was almost a replay of the Jacob curse during the Laban and the stolen teraphim incident, as the brothers condemn whoever stole the grail of Joseph. The man in whose hand the goblet was found, he shall become my slave, and you go up. And we keep getting these little insights into the nature and character of Joseph. He tells them he is a diviner. They should know he knows, and they accept that he would know. So do not lie. My friends, as Judah approaches Joseph, what we do not realize is this was the last test. Would the brothers allow the 2 sons of Rachel to be slaves? Joseph was. Would Benjamin now join him in that fate? This is the parsha of destiny. And while so many of us would not be able to exercise the great gift of forgiveness, and I will remind you, friends, it is one of the greatest gifts we can bestow. It's central to so many spiritual systems. Joseph demonstrates just such power. He wants only to protect his family. And we will see that even more next week. Emotions are running rampant in this family, in this parsha. Just look at Genesis 45:2. And he wept out loud, and Egypt heard, and Pharaoh's house heard. Cry, baby, cry. Make your mother sigh. She's old enough to know better. Wow, what a lament. Either Pharaoh lived next door and the walls were extremely thin, or this was the loudest, most cathartic lament of all time. The capturing of the extreme emotional roller coaster relationships. The ultimate snapshot in the theater of life. First one side, then the other. I'm Joseph. Is my father still alive? And his brothers were not able to answer him because they were terrified in front of him. How could they answer him? We are presented with events, incidents, and things which keep pointing to wisdom, knowledge, and connection to the Spirit of God. Rashi had suggested that Joseph was an old soul. We see why. When he tells the brothers, don't be sad and let there be no anger in your eyes because you sold me here. Because God sent me before to preserve life. Look at the insight in how the nature of the universe and the will of God unfolds. It wasn't them, it was God. Too often we try to control the movements of things taking place on a grander scale. Joseph understood his destiny. There is a greater power. And sometimes we have to let go and view it from a higher perspective. Friends, we are told it is year 2 of the famine, which means there are 5 more to go. Joseph wants to preserve his family. And then to me, one of the most interesting statements in the Torah is made. Almost a throwaway line, but I was fascinated by it. In Genesis 45:8, and it is connected to the wisdom he exhibited. It wasn't you who sent me here, but God, and he made me into a father to Pharaoh, and a lord to all his house, and a ruler in all the land of Egypt. Joseph has become a wise, sensitive man, and like his father, the change in him came during the period in which he had contact with the divine, when he was given that amazing divine power to interpret and unlock dreams. We read about changes that overcome people when they encounter divinity, as we see more clearly after Moses' encounter at the burning bush, and even today. And while most of our sages and commentators have focused on the realization of divinity, destiny, and wisdom that Joseph exhibits, I'd like to focus on that other statement, which most people have just taken as a throwaway line. History always wants to know, who are these people? Did they exist? And much speculation has surrounded the historic versus the literary with so many of the biblical characters. For some reason, it helps our belief when we can point to the real-life character. Now, we may not like the real-life character, but we need to have a real-life character. Who was Joseph? I don't know. But there are some who believe he was the mysterious Egyptian Yuya. Even sounds a little like Yosef, doesn't it? Yuya was a very powerful Egyptian courtier during the 18th dynasty, an amazing period, one containing Amenhotep III and IV, also known as Akhenaten, who Freud believed was the historic Moses, and the boy king, Tutankhamun. He was married to Tuyu, an Egyptian noblewoman associated with the royal family who held positions in government and religious hierarchies. Their love story is the type of legend, and their daughter Tai became the great royal wife of Amenhotep III. They also may have been the parents of Ai, an Egyptian courtier active during the reign of Akhenaten, who eventually became pharaoh. Interestingly enough, Yuya's origins remain unclear. His mummy showed that he had been a man of taller than average stature, and it was thought that his appearance was not typically Egyptian. As a result of his unusual name and features, some Egyptologists believe that he was of foreign origin, and it was thought he could have been an assimilated descendant of Asiatic immigrants or slaves. He served as a key advisor for Amenhotep III and held posts such as King's Lieutenant and had the title Father of the God, which they believe possibly referred specifically to his being Amenhotep's father-in-law. And friends, he was the only one ever to have such an appellation. Now, I don't know about you, but to me, it sure sounds like someone who quite easily could have described himself as father to Pharaoh. What an interesting way for somebody to have described themselves in the Torah, my friends. The Judaic connection to ancient Egypt is a fascinating one. We must not let either current prejudices or illusions of truth project onto ancient cultural connections. Whether Yuya and Joseph were one and the same, no one knows. And after his great reveal, when Joseph tells his brothers to go back to his father and say, God has made me a lord to all Egypt. Come down to me. Don't stand back. We have another defining moment. This, a defining moment for a people. Pharaoh listens and says, take your father and your households and come to me. I'll give you the best of the land of Egypt and eat the fat of the land. Pharaoh wants to provide for the family. And friends, that is why the book of Exodus and the story of Moses begins by telling us there was a Pharaoh who did not know Joseph. Times change. Generations move on. Then, my friends, we get one of the few famous biblical formulae of the double name calling, the life-defining formula, as seen in Abraham, Abraham, Jacob, Jacob, Moses, Moses. In Genesis 46:2, and God said to Israel in night visions, that is dreams, and he said, Jacob, Jacob. All of these double name callings, my friends, are completed by the phrase, I am here. Abraham responds thus, Jacob responds thus, and Moses will respond that way too. This also marks the first time we see God actually talk to Jacob, and that, my friends, is his real tie to Abraham and Isaac. In each instance, the formula calls for something, for the saving of life. In the first instance, with Abraham, it was calling for the safety and the saving of the life of Isaac. Here, it assures Jacob there's nothing to fear in Egypt and is concerned with the saving of the lives of the family. God says he will take them down to Egypt and will lead them back, a prediction of what will come in the future. With Moses, it will be the saving of the lives of a nation and the saving of a spiritual identity. Very amazing formula, my friends. We are then given a Toldot, our third genealogy, telling us that there were 70 souls who went to Egypt, and that number becomes important during Exodus and during the time of Moses with the elders and the judges. Friends, you will read countless exercises in futility to ensure the number comes to 70 by suggesting whether Jacob is counted or not, if Joseph's two sons count, or possibly they only count as half each and together make one. Don't get caught up in it. Remember, the minutiae can really bog you down. The biblical use of numbers is often simply symbolic approximation. 70 is a fullness, a large round number. 10 times the sacred 7. As we approach the end of the Jacob era of history and the completion of the descent of the soul of man, We observed family dynamics comprising realistic impulses built on the sense of the psychological complexity of families. Sibling rivalry, fathers and sons in conflict, mothers finding channels of influence in male family structures, women torn between fathers and husbands. Friends, the defining moments of life string together to create the sum of a life. How we get things, how we look at things. Do we understand the people in our lives? As we observe the end of the patriarch era, we see a summary of Jacob's own life echo with a kind of complex solemnity against all that we have seen him undergo. He's achieved everything he aspired to achieve. The birthright, the blessing, the marriage with his beloved Rachel, progeny, and wealth. But friends, one measure of the profound moral realism of the story is that although he gets everything he wanted, it is not the way he would have wanted. Too often the consequence is far more pain than contentment. From his clashing at birth with his twin in the womb, everything has been a struggle. He displaces Esau, but only at the price of fear, lingering guilt, and long exile. He gets Rachel, but only by having Leah imposed on him with all the domestic strife that entails, and he loses Rachel early in childbirth. He's given a new name by his divine adversary, but comes away with a permanent wound. He gets the full solar year number of 12 sons, but there is enmity among them. And he spends 22 years, a very important number, a very mystical number, continually grieving over his favorite son, who he believes is dead. The defining moments of this life created a story with a happy ending that withholds any simple feeling of happiness at the end. Friends, the destiny of our lives are the product of our defining moments. How are you defining yours? Clouds so swift, rain won't lift. Gates won't close, railings froze. Get your mind off of wintertime. You ain't going nowhere. Thank you all for joining me. Watch the light increase in your lives every day. If you forget, just watch it get lighter every day. Love you all. See the miracles in your life. Be well, be happy, and be blessed. Light the lights. Shine on brightly. And remember, I get by with a little help from my friends, as do we all. Thank you. Love you. See you all next time. Shabbat shalom. Be well, my friends. Take care. Bye.